I am Adam Weil, partner at White Rabbit Group. Welcome to the Pixel Perfect podcast, where we share knowledge, experiences, and motivations from creatives and entrepreneurs. Excited to talk with Miles Marmo, co-founder of Agency Squid. I really like how he describes himself. He says on his LinkedIn headline, "I'm just a brand guy, playing an advertising guy, playing a business guy." Now, before I go on, is that a Tropical Thunder reference?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. This is going to be a fun conversation. I already know it.
Yeah.
So I think his experience is really interesting because Miles was previously at Mike's Hard Lemonade and the Mark Anthony Group. So he's seen the inside of some of these large brands and taken the lessons of them and applied it to his own agency and, of course, clients. So Agency Squid is based in Minneapolis and goes toe to toe, from what I understand, with some of the bigger agencies on the East and West Coast. So I'm definitely excited to dive into that. I think there's not enough talk around that. So if he's willing to share, it'd be fun to talk about that. And just what else you've done to grow and compete. So Miles, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Adam.
Yeah, excited to dive into it. So Agency Squid started 10 years ago. What specifically pushed you from kind of being on the brand side marketing into founding your own creative agency? And what problem do you feel agencies weren't really solving well enough at the time, at least?
For sure. So I'd been just even before I was at Mark Anthony, I'd been at agency sides prior to that, small boutiques. And then when I got a chance to go brand side, I was managing, fantastic creative media PR agencies. And to be on that side kind of gave a different perspective, even at different scales, right? Small, large, holding co, independent. Especially on the creative front, we're all kind of struggling with the same thing and no knock to creative agencies, but a lot of times those agencies are started by creatives. You maybe an account person as well, but I'm a strategist. That was my role, was to look at the nature of the business and figure out how marketing and advertising and creative and digital and all these different kind of outputs drove the business forward. And what I think I realized while I was at Mark Anthony and thought that this was just kind of me at smaller agencies, that we suffered from this. But then the realization working with larger agencies was creativity is subjective. And if it's not being used to solve a business problem, it's being done so to create for the sake of creating. And that I thought was a huge miss from creative agencies that weren't really being held accountable for the work. Again, subjectively, a lot of great ideas and a lot of great thinking, but I was ultimately tasked with making sure that the business was successful, making sure that we were launching new products. How are we working them within shelf sets? How are we driving awareness and consideration? And how are we looking at, that kind of classic full funnel marketing, but with the rise of, digital channels and things like that, like then it's retention and advocacy and all kind of sit outside of it. And so starting Squid was meant to be this bridge between, we had hired, consulting groups that would help us navigate and then condense that into a brief and then give that to a creative agency. And it just seemed like a lot of unnecessary work that still didn't lead to continuity. And so what Squid was meant to focus on was take this business consultancy mindset and use creativity as outputs by understanding, okay, these are the marketing levers that we need to pull based on what this brand is trying to accomplish, and then align those together. So making sure that every single dollar that was being invested by a brand was being done so to build equity behind that brand, but also, push cultural relevance and commercial viability and all these other things. And 10 years ago, right, there were a few consultancies that had purchased creative agencies, but it was done at a much larger scale. So we found that there was a mid-market gap that wasn't being addressed. It's like, yeah, we'll focus on the 99% of the brands that sit in there. We don't need Pepsi and Coke and all of that. We're happy to take the challenger brands and take big swings. So that was really kind of the precipice of where things started and where we were able to make inroads and differentiate ourselves as a creative agency, because ultimately creativity is the bar. We are that, but it's how to use that to make our clients and their brands successful, to help them
Mm,
grow their careers, right? So
right.
that's really where we started, and
Yep.
also doing something for yourself. I probably am a bit more attach more of my value to the work that I do. So it ended up being like, if I'm going to work this hard, I might as well do it for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Love it.
what it came to be.
So it sounded like you saw some of these kind of mid-level clients really underserved. Maybe the agencies that we're working with, that you were working with, that you saw them working with, they're super heavy on the creative side, but it didn't wasn't really connecting back to kind of the business and the strategy. And so you felt like, all right, if I'm going to work so hard to really make sure these business outcomes happen, then I'm going to create a hybrid agency, which I like how you kind of hybrid, you describe it as a creative strategy and execution. And, on our pre-call, we talked about how you really value the execution side. So talk about that. I know you kind of view yourself as sort of the workhorse, and
Yeah.
I'd like to understand that perspective a little bit more.
I think as you kind of led, one of the reasons why, I mean, we're in Minneapolis, center of the country. A lot of people consider kind of flyover country. And what we found, at least in the last few years, is business that's migrating from the coast to the Midwest or in the South, like with Texas or Kansas City. I think that there's a cultural value that the middle of the country brings of like, we
Mm,
work really, really hard. Um, and we're also creative. So we kind of get the best of both worlds. And I'm not saying that the coasts aren't that,
mm,
but there's certainly a difference in work ethic and discipline, I think, that sits in the middle of the country that there does on the coast. And that's
mm,
personal.
mhm.
Um, so we all like to work here. Granted, we have a work-life balance, so it's not all the time.
Sure.
Uh, but as I think I told you in the pre-call, like every employee that works at Squid, I say we need two things out of you, and how it gets done, don't really care. But number one is when you're here, we sprint. We work hard. We work for our clients. We want them to be successful. That is what makes us excited at Squid. That's our culture. And
Mhm,
the other side of it is communication. Tell me what you need, whether that's resources or you're near burnout. As long as that communication is flowing, we will find solutions for that. But if you don't
mm,
communicate, we can't help. And
mhm,
so those two principles have allowed us to execute at a different level because, I mean, budgets are all different types of scales. Our job is to make them work.
mhm,
And ultimately, right, you're in this industry because you like to create. So
mhm,
I wish I could say it would be for the money because it's not that. It's because I think we want to see the world a little bit more colorful, a little bit more entertaining, a little bit
mm,
more emotional. So yeah,
mm,
that hybrid side of it is how do we best support the clients and the pain points that they experience, and how do we sit next to them uh, and feel like a truer partner, being able to pick up the ball where they probably don't have the time or the
mm,
bandwidth to be able to say like I need to put together a brief. It's like no, I've sat in your seat. I a 30-minute conversation. I got you. I'll
mhm,
take this to the team. We'll run with it. We'll come back to you. And then in that hour that I have with them, like, let's make it the most fun hour of your day because you're probably sitting in
mm,
spreadsheet or PowerPoint for the rest of
mhm,
it. So yeah. And then obviously where rubber meets the road of how do all these insights take place and then start shaping awareness marketing or consideration or brand perception or trial, right? They're all different tactics needed to help drive a brand forward that you can't just take one piece of creative and splice it a bunch of different ways. That's not the way that the world works anymore. So
right.
we have to, I think, control that continuity,
Yeah.
do so in a way that also is mindful of the resources that sit internally with our clients. Okay, cool. You've got a social team. How do we arm them so that
Mm,
they're able to do the job to the best of their abilities, right? Versus
mm,
taking all of that away from them or looking at them as just a production house. So
mm, mhm.
it's a constant flux and balance, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. That's good. I mean, you're small enough where you could be flexible like that, it sounds like, and
Yep.
figure out what their situation is and kinda mold to that. How do you tell that story in a way that's compelling? I really like the idea of whatever your strengths or weaknesses are, like, just fully embrace them, you know? Like, if you're in the middle of the country, like, just embrace that. Like, I love how
Yeah.
you have a unique perspective on that that has now turned it into an advantage. So, what I'm curious what that looks like outwardly facing to some of these clients. How do you present that? When does that come up? Is it something you lead with, or is it something that you are more reactive about?
I mean, I think that if we're creating a relationship with a new client, it becomes a talking point, but it's certainly not a focus.
Mm,
It's like, uh, we're in the middle of the country, which allows us to serve both coasts well. I mean, makes our days a little bit longer, but again, that's the expectation here of for as much work that we do in the specific industries like consumer goods or adult beverage, like there's a lot of work on the West Coast for our wine clients, right? Between Napa and Lodi and Santa Barbara or wherever, Mendocino. So we have to serve them. So it's in part a little bit of that, but I think just from us reading the tea leaves of where, like I said, where clients' pinch points are, like having to take
mm,
the same focus of if we're looking at personas for our clients, we also need to be looking at our clients as personas of who do we want to be working for and who's going to be the best suited for our agency because we're not the right agency for everybody.
mm,
Uh, and also, if I'm just honest, that talk track is tough for us. We're still refining it and
sure.
figuring it out, but I think the Midwest values of you're going to get a team that is working on your behalf does resonate. I also think that the fact that we are a marketing founded but creatively led organization
Mhm,
helps connect those dots faster for clients who see themselves as understaffed, under resourced, lack of
mm,
time. And again, I sympathize for CMOs at this day and age because they're pretty much in meetings for 8 hours a day. Like, when do they actually get the work done?
yeah,
So
yeah,
they're asked to be subject matter experts on all these things. So that hybrid nature of us is, and like I said, we've sat in those seats. We know what those conversations are like. Our job is to bring our clients an expertise to inform them on managing up while we can continue to manage the continuity that sits in the work that needs to be done. So that balancing
mm,
act, I think, is the strongest talk track that we have, and
mm,
also probably the biggest differentiator against most of the creative shops that we get placed against of, yeah, we'll push an idea creatively, but if it's not assigned to the right channel or the right audience or within where the category is going and all these kind of strategic conversations that need to sit within that,
mhm,
the chance of failure is so much higher. And I also think that's partially why creative agencies kind of see a revolving door and why this industry as a whole is seeing an enormous shakeup is
mm,
accountability is starting to come at every single every single angle. So
mhm,
that's where that hybrid of if we can sit with our clients, if we can glean the information that and the conversations that they're having,
mhm,
we can better inform the work, potentially manage an IAT, um,
mhm,
look at all of the different channels that they're focusing on, properly assign like where their investments going, where they're going to get the biggest bang for their buck, right? That
mhm.
those things of
Yeah,
those are for the benefits of the clients because if they're successful by us taking the lead on some of these things, like we stay around, and then I don't have to pitch.
right.
So
Yeah,
that's the goal, right? Like I just want to work with good people and do good work. If we get to that point, like that's best case scenario for us. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I love it. Yeah, it makes sense. I think you're, a unique agency in the sense that you're smaller and then you bring all these different, approaches to it and flexibility. So how does that actually play itself out? Because if you're small, because I'm telling you, a lot of these agencies that are bigger are struggling right now. They're so bloated, right? There's so many layers there that they're not able to move as fast. They're not
Mhm.
able to like really make decisions across multiple areas because it has to go through all these different channels. So I think the way you're structured, you have some advantages. I want to know what does that look like on the inside? How are you infiltrating this company and really understanding their business and able to make decisions and guide them from a business side, not just the creative?
Yeah, it's a good question because I think one part of this is that I had always fought against the expertise that we have. Like I mentioned in adult beverage or consumer packaged goods work, I had always wanted for the first, I'd say 9 years of this agency. So this is probably relatively recent, but the first 9 years, like, I don't want to be just known as that agency. And then realizing that that's actually a pretty incredible strength of
Mm,
we have such deep knowledge in that space, and not specific to one product, but that industry as a whole, that
mhm,
we come in and we've got a really good understanding of the nuance in what is shifting, how purchase behavior is shifting right now, and how shelf
mhm,
sets are shifting, and how retailers are, I mean, same as brands are struggling to bring in consumers and cater to their, wants and needs and all of those things. So us being able to focus that,
mm,
being more kind of what I would call lifestyle brand focused of
mm,
people choose to bring these products into their lives.
mhm.
We've got to make that choice easy or compelling in one way, shape, or form. And so I think we come by that focus, we come in a bit ahead of the curve than if we were trying to get into a completely new industry. So I think that
Yeah.
that's one part of it is uh,
Yeah, that
double
domain expertise.
right, which I had fought against. That's a
Mm,
bad decision for an owner. So I
mhm,
live and learn, and now it's like since we've done that, we've started to grow our consumer packaged goods business and look at other industries like pasta sauce and like ice cream and and
mhm,
frozen foods and lemonades, which again, if you walk into a grocery store or retail environment, like that's our world. We know it
mm,
now.
mhm,
So that part I think is really helpful. And I'll also say, like again, we consider ourselves students. We are all we're always learning and always listening. And if we are just relying on creative to get us through, I mean, the world moves so fast. There's no room to invest in just one campaign. We've got to look at cultural relevancy over the course of 365 days. And part
mm,
of that is understanding where trends are going and where things are leaning, but also how do we inject brands into the right conversation at the right time.
mm,
Um, so I think our work then becomes more complicated in that regard. And that's why that continuity is so important is
yeah.
as you said, brands are struggling. Even big agencies are struggling. We have to stay pretty flat ourselves to be able to have these conversations and move quickly.
Mm,
Um, and then again, being a strategically led marketing organization with creative outputs, I think allows us to be in those conversations and gives us that right.
mm,
Um, I'd also say the last thing that I'll mention about us being small is like we're small by design. I Success has been so largely dictated by headcount and revenue. I mean, read
mm,
any trade publication, and it's about look at how great this agency is doing. They've got X in billings. Like, I don't care about that.
mhm,
Um, I would rather our team be happy and healthy and for myself to be able to go and spend time with my daughter. So
mm,
there's a ceiling for us and we're okay with that. I
mm,
mean, ultimately, if we're building this the right way, we become one of the best boutique shops in the country, and we're picking and choosing who we work with because those people value what we can bring by being, students with thousands of hours under our belt in perfecting a craft.
mm,
Um, and so again, growth for us is not, necessarily the most revenue or the most staff or the
mhm,
most offices. It's are we able to live this balanced life that we've created and be happy
mm,
and get paid well in the process, but do so and manage that's in a way that's sustainable and retains our culture. Because I
yeah.
think that our culture is what makes our shop different. As
Mm,
anybody else I think would say about their shop is that. And when you
right.
scale to a certain point, you're going to struggle and then you feed the beast. And a lot of those, like you said, a lot of those big guys are punching down into our space. It's like, that's the
Yeah.
best case scenario. Bring awareness to the little guys that we can do this work too.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Right.
Yep.
So all of that chaos that's happening above us, like, no, bring it on. That's great.
Mhm, mhm,
I'll go
yeah.
against that all day.
It's funny, the head count badge and the billings badge, it's such an outdated model because just because they have a certain head count, just because they have a certain amount of billings, doesn't mean they're a profitable or even successful business
For
by
sure.
any means. So it's cool to hear how you've reframed it. I wanna dive into that culture a little bit more because as you mentioned, you sounds like you've sort of embraced I think you called it like the lifestyle brands,
Yeah.
and you mentioned a lot of different kind of products there. But I do wonder, an agency that focuses kind of on a specific niche like that, how do you keep, and you mentioned culture being so important, how do you keep the team engaged and excited and not stale, right? Because I think if you end up doing the same thing over and over, it can get kind of redundant and stale. So is there enough variety across the lifestyle brands, or is there something else there in the culture that you're injecting to make sure everything does feel fresh and exciting?
I think what happens in that space is, like, I'll use our adult beverage experience as an example of, we've worked in hard seltzers, we've worked in wine, beer, spirits, ready to drink cocktails, even frozen novelties that have booze in them. Um, what gets me excited about that is, one, the industry as a whole is shifting and struggling. Well, not, I wouldn't say struggling. It's, big guys are struggling. Where they've kind of closed gaps is through mergers and acquisitions. And so part of that is because those big guys, uh, not to throw, I'll throw them under the bus. Why not?
Do it. Do it.
Anheuser-Busch, like, Anheuser-Busch they're the best brewer in the world, from a consistency standpoint, but they're terrible at innovation. Like,
Mm,
they're not good at necessarily addressing a consumer need. And so this whole system is structured right now in the US based on, retailers and distributors controlling the market, where consumers are then now actively voting with their wallets by going to independents and finding other products. So you see kind of bigger guys that are struggling, but you've got brands like Surfside and Long Drink who are growing at double and triple digits. There's space in this category based just solely on consumer preference that
mm,
brands aren't identifying. And so, to your question, how do we stay fresh and stay current, even with as much work that we might do in one very specific focus, is we might be responsible for a few brands that are sitting on shelf. But if those few brands are speaking to consumers differently than where most of the money is sitting, and bringing consumers to the category, like, we can pick up mid funnel where they're leaving off, because that's their playbook. They're really good at opening up the market. We're really
mm,
good at picking off the people that are being brought there by them and seeing some sort of interest. So
mm,
all the wine brands have different personalities and different perspectives, different occasions, right? Like, the RTD is the same thing. So I think, just based on the nature of where consumer preference is shifting, that might be pandemic and renewed sense of health and wellness, that might be, feeling fulfilled, but also trying to find value in it. Brands don't communicate these value props well. They just think, oh, our innovation is a new flavor or a new
mm,
pack format, and consumers don't care, right?
mm,
So I think that there's, and that's across most of consumer packaged goods. There's this industry was propped up by enormous multinationals. Consumers don't want that anymore.
mm,
And I think that that's starting to show. And so, because of that, all of these brands have an opportunity to reinvent themselves. And I think that's what gets us really excited about the work that comes in. Of,
mm,
we might be working on 3 different wine brands at a given time, but cab drinker to a Sauvignon Blanc drinker, very different profiles, very different occasions, very different, you know,
mhm,
personas. We've got a lot of runway there. And wine is also the most notorious industry that has been so piss poor at marketing to consumers. It's like, the bar is so low. So it's super fun when you've got a
mm,
client that's like, we got to figure this out. Okay, cool.
mhm,
Here's all the trends and what people are responding to from a culture standpoint, and all these different inputs that we can bring to kind of that
mhm,
brand personality. Um, and again, to that point of, as a leader, need to be really conscious of who's coming in that door, that we're not doing, to your point, the same thing over and over and over.
mm,
We are
mhm,
working in pasta sauce, and then looking at that occasion and that environment, and how are we, you know, making parents more confident in the choice that they could be feeding their kids these things and these ingredients, but also having a brand perception about that.
mhm,
Um, Ice cream. What are those occasions beyond dessert, right? How do you give someone, like, it's okay to be a little indulgent here and there?
mhm, mhm,
Uh, we've all got different stressors. To eat an ice cream sandwich at 11 in the morning is not a bad thing. So don't feel
mm,
guilty about it if that's what you're craving, right? So
mhm,
that's where, when our team can sit and kind of switch gears constantly. But
Mhm.
being a relatively flat organization, it gives everybody a voice and everybody perspective.
Mm.
There are no wrong answers, but we will challenge each other. And so just that engagement around our table leads
Yeah.
to rich discussions, and also someone's idea out of left field could show up on shelf. And there's no better feeling as a creative than to
Mm.
see your work like that be embraced by thousands of consumers, millions of consumers
Right.
potentially.
Right. Yeah, really, really influencing culture. I think that's something you can get excited about as a creative or as an executor. And, it's funny just hearing you explain some of those nuances of the industry, you know, um, insights there. Like it's such a testament to when you're within a certain lane for such a long time, you really see it evolve and change. And just that language alone right there allows you to have such a different conversation and relationship with buyers and with potential buyers. So yeah, I really think there's something to that. And especially having the flat org too of seasoned people that can jump in and out. Such an advantage there. So I want to ask you one last question, which is you seem like maybe a little bit of a contrarian. We're in a different time. Things are evolving. You've been in this game for 10 years. What do you think's on the horizon? What big bet would you say is going to happen this year or within the next few years? Anything that's in the back of your mind?
Man, the easy answer would be to say AI, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I my big bet, and this might be the optimist in that comes out with the entrepreneur side, right? Of, oh, wouldn't this be great if? But like I said, you had mentioned all these big shops are struggling. We watch again. We read all about this in trade publications and things like that, of the shakeups that are happening at the holdcos and the
Hmm.
M&A activity that's happening. I think in 3 to 5 years time, independents, should they embrace this, like, look, we've got a cap and we're just going to do this, and we're going to do it really well, and we're going to have this stable of clients, we don't need to go after everybody. If they have that kind of that come to Jesus moment of, we can make a really good living and do really good work, but control our own environment, I think that power shift starts to move in the advantage of independent boutiques across not just
Mm,
creative, but media. Because also traditional buying power is only a part of the media landscape today. It's now so heavily digital, like buying in
mhm,
bulk doesn't really make sense for the business models of these big guys. So
mm,
I think, I think holding codes are not going to go away. I think they'll just continue to snatch up small shops to offset those margins.
mhm,
And if a small boutique like ours wants to go that route and have that option, that's amazing. And if not, and we can just control our own destiny and know that there's a ceiling, like a really good restaurant where you've got a set amount of
mm,
tables and you can only turn them twice in a night. You know
mhm.
what your revenue is, you know what your head count needs to be, but you know that
Yeah.
you can execute at that level time and time again. That to me is what is going to bring creativity and this industry back to life in a big way. It's not
Mm,
AI,
yeah.
it's not these other things. I think it's a real look at what we need to get out of it as agencies, and
Mm,
being okay with that and coming to terms with it and realizing that we can still live a really good life, do really, really good work.
mhm.
Um, but that head count and revenue are not the things that we need to be judging ourselves by. And that
Right.
I think that shift is starting to happen.
Mm,
Um, so that's where I'd be placing my bets. But again,
yeah.
it's a focus group of one, and I think I have to be optimistic because I'm an agency owner. So,
So independent creatives are gonna have a moment,
yeah,
basically. They're gonna
that's
have a
what I
moment. And
yeah.
it's gonna be a sustainable moment. I think that what you're describing there, you're talking about a true expert in their domain, and that's always gonna be valuable. So,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Appreciate the hot take.
that I don't know if it's a hot take, but it's certainly an
We'll check back
opinionated
in
one.
3 to 5 years, we'll have you back on, and we'll see where it stands.
Perfect. I can't wait.
Watch, it's just all holdcos, no
Yeah,
independence
just
anymore.
and we've been acquired and now we're,
Yeah, exactly.
Publicis Squid or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. Cool, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it. Tell the audience where they can learn more about Agency Squid, follow your journey. Where should they go?
Yeah. So obviously our website, agencysquid.com. We've also fairly active on LinkedIn as we publish our thought leadership pieces of kind of what we're seeing within the industry. And if you want to check out our work between the website or even kind of our Instagram at Agency Squid, those are the places. If you're interested in the work, if you're interested in the thoughts, if you're interested in both, those would be the three that I would go to.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Miles. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you for listening to the Pixel Perfect podcast, where we go down the rabbit hole on the journey and motivations of creatives and entrepreneurs. Stay tuned for more stories to come. Until next time.